Dr. Zethkar pulled his secondary arms closer to his body as he read the assignment notice for the third time. The pale blue text on his datapad seemed to mock him with each word. Study human combat methodology. Analyze their tactical approaches. Provide comprehensive report to the Galactic Defense Council. He had spent the last 15 years studying the peaceful aspects of various species. Plant cultivation techniques of the Verdani. The beautiful mathematics behind Christec architecture. The meditation practices of the monks of Serenity Prime. Now they wanted him to research violence. Specifically, human violence. The transport ship hummed quietly around him as it approached the human research station orbiting Earth. Through the viewing port, Zethkar could see the blue and green planet that had somehow produced the most feared warriors in known space. It looked so peaceful from this distance. Deceptively calm. His colleague, Dr. Vesera, noticed his discomfort. She was a Selenite, tall and graceful with silver skin that reflected the ship's lights. You seem troubled, Zethkar. This assignment makes no sense, he replied, all four of his arms gesturing in frustration. I study culture and sociology, not military tactics. Why would the council assign me to analyze human combat? Vesera's large eyes showed sympathy. Perhaps because you approach things differently. Military analysts see only weapons and strategies. You might see the deeper reasons behind their methods. Zethkar was not convinced. His species, the Kethmori, had evolved past physical conflict over 1,000 years ago. They settled disputes through careful debate and logical analysis. The idea of studying how to hurt other beings made his stomach twist in knots. The docking procedure began with a series of mechanical sounds. Through the intercom, the ship's AI announced their arrival at Research Station Harmony. The name was ironic, considering what Zethkar was here to study. Commander Sarah Chen met them at the airlock. She was smaller than most humans Zethkar had seen in the databases, but something about her presence commanded attention. Her dark hair was pulled back severely, and her eyes seemed to take in everything at once. Dr. Zethkar, Dr. Vesera, welcome to Harmony Station, she said with a smile that seemed genuine. I understand you're here to study our military methods. Unfortunately, yes, Zethkar replied before he could stop himself. Commander Chen's smile widened. Not a fan of violence, I take it? My people believe conflicts should be resolved through discussion and compromise. Physical combat is primitive. Commander Chen nodded thoughtfully. Interesting perspective. Well, let me show you to your quarters first. Tomorrow we'll start with some basic observations. As they walked through the station's corridors, Zethkar noticed how different it felt from other research facilities. The humans moved with purpose, their steps confident but not aggressive. Security personnel were present but not overwhelming. Everything seemed organized yet flexible. His quarters were comfortable, designed to accommodate his unique physiology. A low sleeping platform, multiple work surfaces for his various arms, and environmental controls adjusted for his preferences. The humans had clearly done their research. That evening, Zethkar reviewed the materials Commander Chen had provided. Basic military structure, common tactical terminology, and historical context for human warfare. The more he read, the more confused he became. Human military history was filled with contradictions. They fought incredibly brutal wars, yet had strict rules about protecting civilians. They created weapons of massive destruction, then negotiated treaties to limit their use. They honored fallen enemies and cared for wounded opponents. His personal communicator chimed with a message from the council. Progress report required within 7 days. Council members anxious for initial findings. 7 days to understand something that had puzzled military analysts for decades. Zethkar felt his secondary arms begin to tremble with stress. The next morning, Commander Chen led him to an observation deck overlooking the station's training facility. Below, human soldiers practiced various exercises. Some worked with weapons, others focused on physical conditioning, and still others studied tactical scenarios on holographic displays. What do you see? Commander Chen asked. Zethkar watched carefully. They appear to be preparing for combat. Learning to use weapons more effectively, improving their physical capabilities. Look closer. Don't focus on the weapons. Watch the people. He adjusted his vision enhancers and observed more carefully. A young soldier was struggling with a complex martial arts sequence. Instead of being ignored or punished, two senior soldiers stepped in to help. They broke down the movement into smaller parts, demonstrated slowly, and provided encouragement. At a weapons range, an instructor noticed one trainee flinching at the sound of energy discharges. Rather than dismissing this as weakness, the instructor worked patiently to help the soldier overcome their fear, explaining the psychology behind their reaction. "I don't understand," Zethkar said. "They're teaching compassion while training for violence." "Are they?" Commander Chen asked. "Or are they doing something else entirely?" Before he could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and personnel moved quickly but without panic to their assigned positions. Commander Chen's demeanor shifted instantly from teacher to military officer. "Pirate vessels approaching Earth's outer system," she said, reading from her wrist display. 3 ships, armed and refusing to respond to hails. Zethkar felt his heart race. "Will there be fighting?" "Possibly. Would you like to observe our response?" Against every instinct his species had developed over millennia, Zethkar nodded. He needed to understand these humans, even if it terrified him. The command center was a marvel of organized chaos. Dozens of personnel managed communications, sensors, and tactical displays. Commander Chen moved between stations, gathering information and making decisions with startling speed. "Admiral Torres incoming on secure channel," announced a communications officer. The main display showed a stern-faced human woman with graying hair and numerous decorations on her uniform. "Commander Chen, we have the situation under control here. But we need Harmony Station to coordinate civilian evacuations from the mining colonies." "Understood, Admiral. Beginning evacuation protocols now." Zethkar watched in amazement as the entire station shifted its focus. The soldiers he had seen training were now organizing rescue ships, calculating optimal evacuation routes, and preparing medical facilities for potential refugees. The same people learning to fight were now working desperately to save lives. "I thought you were training for combat," he said to Commander Chen during a brief quiet moment. "We are. The ultimate goal of all human military training is to protect others. Sometimes that means fighting, sometimes it means evacuation, sometimes it means rebuilding after disasters. The weapons and tactics are just tools." On the tactical display, Zethkar could see the approaching pirate ships. They were moving aggressively toward the mining colonies, clearly intent on raiding the valuable mineral extraction operations. "Why don't you simply negotiate with them?" he asked. "Offer them some resources in exchange for leaving peacefully?" Commander Chen looked at him seriously. "Because they're not interested in negotiation. They want to take everything and leave the colonists with nothing. Sometimes the only way to protect innocent people is to stop those who would harm them." 3 Earth defense vessels moved to intercept the pirates. Zethkar expected to see massive weapons firing and ships exploding. Instead, the human ships used precise, minimal force. They disabled the pirates' engines and weapons systems without destroying the vessels entirely. "Pirate crews are surrendering," reported the tactical officer. "No casualties on either side." Commander Chen nodded with satisfaction. "Good. Prepare boarding teams to secure the prisoners and provide medical assistance if needed." "Medical assistance?" Zethkar asked. "For the pirates? They're defeated, not evil. Our job is to stop them from hurting others, not to hurt them unnecessarily." As the crisis ended and normal operations resumed, Zethkar found himself more confused than ever. Nothing about human military behavior matched what he had expected. They trained for violence but seemed to hate it. They were incredibly effective fighters who went out of their way to avoid fighting whenever possible. That night, he struggled to write his first report to the council. How could he explain that human combat training was actually about protecting others? That their weapons were designed to minimize casualties rather than maximize them? That their most feared warriors were also their most compassionate individuals? His data pad chimed with another message from the council. Initial reports from other researchers concerning human military capabilities appear more dangerous than previously estimated. Recommend accelerated timeline for your analysis. Zethkar stared at the message for a long time. Other researchers were finding humans more dangerous, while he was discovering they might be the most moral military force in the galaxy. Either he was completely wrong, or he was seeing something others had missed. Commander Chen found him in the station's observation lounge the next morning, staring out at the stars while 4 cups of stimulating beverage cooled around him. "Rough night?" she asked, settling into a chair nearby. "I don't understand your people," he admitted. "Everything I observe contradicts everything I expected to find." "What did you expect?" "Brutal warriors who solve problems through violence. Aggressive expansionists who use military force to take whatever they want." The reports from other species paint humans as the most dangerous military power in known space. Commander Chen was quiet for a moment. "We are dangerous. Probably more dangerous than you realize." "But, dangerous to whom?" "What do you mean?" "A surgeon's knife is dangerous. In the wrong hands, it can kill. In the right hands, it saves lives. Human military power is similar. We become very good at fighting because the universe is full of things that want to hurt innocent people. Pirates, slavers, aggressive empires, parasitic entities. Someone has to stand between them and their victims." She stood up and gestured toward the viewing port. "Look out there, Dr. Zethkar. How many peaceful species exist today because humans were willing to fight for them? How many colonies are safe because we patrol the shipping lanes? How many diplomatic solutions were reached because aggressors knew they'd face human opposition if they chose violence?" Zethkar considered her words. The galactic peace his own people enjoyed was indeed protected by human fleets. Trade routes that had been plagued by pirates for centuries were now safe. Even aggressive species like the Vortak Empire had become more reasonable in their negotiations since humans had demonstrated their military capabilities. So human military training is really about giving us the ability to choose peace from a position of strength, Commander Chen finished. If we're weak, diplomacy is just begging. If we're strong, diplomacy becomes genuine negotiation between equals. For the first time since arriving, Zethkar felt like he might actually understand something about human military culture. But that understanding brought new questions that worried him even more. If humans were this effective while holding back, what would happen if they ever stopped restraining themselves? Dr. Zethkar spent the next several days observing human military training with growing fascination and horror. Each session revealed new contradictions that challenged everything he thought he knew about warfare. In the Combat Simulation Center, he watched soldiers practice room-to-room clearing techniques. Instead of using overwhelming firepower to eliminate all potential threats, they employed non-lethal weapons when possible, checked for civilians, and provided immediate medical care to wounded opponents. "This seems inefficient," he mentioned to Sergeant Martinez, who was running the exercise. "Wouldn't it be faster to simply eliminate all resistance?" Sergeant Martinez, a compact woman with kind eyes and multiple scars on her hands, looked at him with surprise. "Faster, maybe. But we're not trying to be efficient killers, document. We're trying to solve problems with minimal loss of life." "But, in combat, isn't the primary goal to defeat your enemy?" "The primary goal is to complete the mission while bringing everyone home alive. Sometimes that means defeating enemies, sometimes it means avoiding them entirely. The best battles are the ones you never have to fight." Zethkar made notes on his datapad, though he wasn't sure how to categorize what he was learning. His academic background had provided frameworks for analyzing peaceful conflict resolution and aggressive military conquest, but nothing in between. Later that day, Commander Chen introduced him to Colonel Patricia Hayes, a veteran of the Krellian border conflicts. The colonel was missing her left arm below the elbow, and her face bore the subtle scars of energy weapon burns. "Dr. Zethkar is studying our combat methods for the Galactic Council," Commander Chen explained. Colonel Hayes nodded slowly. "What have you learned so far?" "I'm beginning to think I understand less each day," Zethkar admitted. "Your people seem to train extensively for war while simultaneously trying to avoid it." "That's exactly right," the colonel said. "Mind if I show you something?" She led him to her private office, which was filled with military decorations, tactical manuals, and photographs of soldiers. But what caught Zethkar's attention were the other items scattered throughout the space: children's drawings, letters of thanks from civilians, and small gifts from various alien species. "This one's from a Zaloni family on Kepler Station," Colonel Hayes said, pointing to a small crystal sculpture. "Pirates had taken their daughter. We got her back unharmed. She picked up a hand-drawn picture showing stick figures in what appeared to be military uniforms. A young boy from New Geneva drew this after we evacuated his town during the volcanic crisis. He wanted to be a soldier like the ones who carried him to safety. Zethkar examined the items more closely. Each one represented lives saved, problems solved, or disasters prevented. These seem more important to you than your military honors. They are. Any idiot can win a battle if they're willing to accept massive casualties. Real skill comes from achieving objectives without unnecessary death or destruction. The colonel sat behind her desk and gestured for Zethkar to take a chair. Let me ask you something, Doctor. What's the most dangerous animal on your home world? Zethkar thought for a moment. The Kethmori eliminated all dangerous predators centuries ago. But, historically, it would have been the mountain razor cats. They were incredibly aggressive and attacked anything that entered their territory. And what happened to them? We destroyed them all. It was the logical solution to protect our civilization. Colonel Hayes leaned back in her chair. Humans made a different choice. Earth still has dangerous predators. Bears, sharks, venomous snakes, big cats. But we learned to coexist with them. We study them, understand their behavior, and avoid conflicts when possible. I don't understand the relevance. Humans are dangerous predators, Dr. Zethkar. Maybe the most dangerous the galaxy has ever seen. But, unlike your razor cats, we learned to control our predatory instincts. We channel them toward protecting rather than destroying. The concept made Zethkar uncomfortable. His species had achieved peace by eliminating their capacity for violence. Humans had achieved something different by mastering it. His contemplation was interrupted by urgent alarms throughout the station. Commander Chen's voice echoed over the intercom, all personnel to emergency stations. We have a developing situation in the Tau Ceti system. In the command center, tactical displays showed a disturbing scene. The peaceful research colony on Tau Ceti 3 was under attack by unknown vessels. The attackers weren't pirates or raiders, but something far worse. Slaver ships, Commander Chen reported grimly. Hegemony design, but the markings don't match any known faction. Zethkar felt his secondary heart skip. The hegemony had been defeated decades ago, but remnant groups occasionally surfaced to resume their practice of capturing and selling sentient beings. The thought of slavery made every civilized species in the galaxy feel sick. Response time from the nearest patrol fleet, asked Colonel Hayes, who had joined them in the command center. 18 hours minimum, replied the tactical officer. The colony will be overrun long before then. Zethkar watched the humans exchange meaningful glances. He had seen this before when the pirates attacked the mining colonies. They were about to do something that went beyond normal military protocols. Emergency authorization requested for rapid response deployment, Commander Chen announced. Mission parameter, civilian rescue and slaver interdiction. Authorization granted, came Admiral Torres's voice over the communications system. Harmony Station is cleared for independent action. Good hunting. The transformation that followed was unlike anything Zethkar had witnessed. The research station revealed hidden capabilities as weapon systems deployed from concealed compartments and additional ships launched from bays he hadn't known existed. What he had thought was a peaceful research facility was actually a disguised military base. Dr. Zethkar, Commander Chen called out. You wanted to study human combat methods. Would you like to observe a real operation? Every instinct told him to refuse, to return to his quarters and wait for the violence to end. But his scientific curiosity overrode his fear. Yes, Commander. I would. Excellent. Report to Base 7 for deployment briefing. Base 7 buzzed with activity as soldiers prepared for rapid deployment. Zethkar noticed immediately that their equipment was different from what he had seen in training. More advanced, more lethal, but also more precise. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Kim, the operations leader, briefed her team while checking their gear. Primary objective is civilian evacuation. Secondary objective is capturing slaver vessels intact for intelligence gathering. Tertiary objective is eliminating any slavers who resist capture. Rules of engagement, asked one of the soldiers. Standard humanitarian protocols. Protect civilians at all costs. Minimize collateral damage. offer surrender opportunities when tactically feasible. Lethal force authorized against anyone threatening civilian lives. Sethkar was struck by the order of priorities. Protecting civilians came before everything else, including the soldiers' own safety. The transport ship carrying the rescue team was fast and well-armed, but what impressed Sethkar most was the crew's behavior during the journey. Instead of preparing for battle with aggressive posturing, they spent their time studying the colony's layout to identify the safest evacuation routes and discussing how to minimize harm to the captured population. Estimated slaver force, asked Sergeant Chen, a young man who shared the commander's surname but seemed unrelated. 3 heavy assault ships, approximately 200 personnel, Lieutenant Commander Kim replied. They've already begun loading civilians into cargo containers. The anger that flashed across the soldiers' faces was immediate and intense. Sethkar had never seen humans express such raw emotion, and it frightened him. Easy, people, Kim said calmly. Channel it. Use that anger to focus, not to cloud your judgment. As they approached Tau Ceti 3, Sethkar observed the tactical situation through the ship's sensors. The slaver vessels were indeed loading captured civilians into transport containers, treating sentient beings like cargo. The sight made him physically ill. Incoming transmission from the slaver commander, reported the communications officer. Put it through, Kim ordered. A harsh voice filled the bridge. Unknown vessel, withdraw immediately or be destroyed. We are conducting legitimate salvage operations under hegemony law. This is Lieutenant Commander Kim of the Earth Defense Force. The hegemony was dissolved by Galactic Treaty 37 years ago. You are engaged in illegal slavery and will surrender immediately. Mocking laughter came through the speakers. Earth monkeys think they can threaten us? We have 200 warriors and heavy weapons. Withdraw or die. Kim's expression never changed. Last warning. Release the civilians and surrender your vessels. Pathetic humans. Attack formation, destroy that ship. The connection ended, and Kim turned to her team. Well, we tried diplomacy. Now we do it the hard way. What followed challenged everything Sethkar thought he knew about space combat. Instead of the prolonged battle he expected, the human ship moved with impossible precision and speed. They disabled the slaver vessel's weapons and engines in a matter of minutes, using surgical strikes that left the hulls intact but the ships completely helpless. Boarding teams deploy, Kim ordered. Remember, civilians are the priority. Slavers are secondary. Sethkar watched through remote cameras as human soldiers moved through the captured vessels. They moved like hunting predators, swift and silent, but their first concern was always the captured civilians. Medical teams followed immediately behind the assault groups, providing care for traumatized and injured prisoners. The slaver crew, confident in their superior numbers, fought back viciously. But the humans demonstrated a level of combat effectiveness that shocked Sethkar. They seemed to anticipate every move, counter every tactic, and overwhelm every defense without apparent effort. More disturbing was their restraint. Even when facing enemies who showed no mercy, the humans used only the minimum force necessary. Slavers who surrendered were subdued and secured. Those who continued fighting were eliminated quickly and efficiently. Within 2 hours, all 3 slaver ships were secured and the civilians were being evacuated to safety. The entire operation had been executed with a precision that seemed almost supernatural. Casualty report, Kim requested as they prepared to return to Harmony Station. 14 wounded civilians, all expected to recover fully, reported the medical team leader. 6 injured slavers receiving treatment. 47 slavers captured alive. 32 eliminated during combat. And our people? 3 minor injuries, no serious casualties. Kim nodded with satisfaction. Good work, everyone. Let's go home. As they traveled back to Harmony Station, Sethkar struggled to process what he had witnessed. The humans had faced an enemy with superior numbers in fortified positions, yet had achieved complete victory with minimal casualties on both sides. How, he asked Kim during the return journey. How did you accomplish so much with so few losses? Kim considered the question carefully. Superior training, better equipment, and clear objectives. But mostly because we understand why we're fighting. I don't understand. Those slavers were fighting for profit. We were fighting for the lives of innocent people. When you know exactly why you're willing to die, it makes you much harder to kill. Zethkar made extensive notes during the return trip, but he knew his report to the council would be incomplete. He had observed human combat effectiveness, but he still didn't understand the deeper principles that made it possible. That evening, as he tried to organize his thoughts, Commander Chen found him again in the observation lounge. "Difficult day?" she asked. "Enlightening, but troubling," he replied. "I watched your people accomplish something that should have been impossible." "Meaning?" "You defeated a superior force while simultaneously protecting their victims and minimizing casualties among the enemy. The tactical efficiency was extraordinary." Commander Chen nodded. "And that troubles you?" "Yes, because it suggests humans are even more dangerous than other species believe. If this represents your normal combat effectiveness." "Dr. Zethkar, may I ask you a personal question?" He gestured agreement with two of his arms. "What would your people do if slavers attacked one of your colonies?" The question caught him off guard. We would file formal protests with the Galactic Council. Request intervention from peacekeeping forces. Offer to negotiate for the release of our people." "And if the slavers refused? If they demanded your entire planetary treasury in exchange for half your people?" Zethkar felt uncomfortable with the hypothetical scenario. We would pay. Life is more valuable than material wealth." "And when they came back next year for more people?" The implications hit him like a physical blow. His people's peaceful approach worked only because others were willing to fight on their behalf. Without human protection of galactic shipping lanes, without the threat of human military intervention, species like his would be helpless against aggressive predators. "We depend on you," he said quietly. "No," Commander Chen replied. "We depend on each other. Your people contribute scientific knowledge, artistic beauty, and philosophical wisdom to galactic civilization. We contribute security. Neither approach is complete without the other." As Zethkar returned to his quarters that night, he realized his assignment was becoming more complex than anyone had anticipated. He wasn't just studying human combat methods. He was discovering the moral foundation that made those methods possible. The week following the slaver incident brought unexpected developments that forced Zethkar to confront even more disturbing aspects of human military capability. Commander Chen had arranged for him to observe advanced combat training exercises, but what he witnessed went far beyond anything he had imagined possible. In the station's main training facility, he watched human soldiers practice something called asymmetric warfare scenarios. The exercise involved a small team of 12 humans defending a civilian population center against a simulated attack by 300 hostiles. "The numbers are unrealistic," Zethkar commented to Master Sergeant Rodriguez, the senior trainer overseeing the exercise. 12 against 300 is impossible odds." Rodriguez smiled grimly. "Doctor, humans have won battles against worse odds than that." "Want to see how?" The simulation began with the attacking force advancing confidently toward the settlement. They had overwhelming numbers, heavy weapons, and air support. Victory seemed assured. Then, the human defenders went to work. They didn't meet the enemy in direct combat. Instead, they used the terrain, the weather, and the attackers' own assumptions against them. Supply lines were disrupted. Communications were jammed. Key leaders were eliminated with precise sniper fire from impossible distances. Most importantly, they turned the civilian population into an intelligence network. Every move the attackers made was reported, analyzed, and countered before it could develop into a threat. "The civilians are helping them," Zethkar observed with surprise. "Of course they are," Rodriguez replied. "That's the secret to human military success that most species miss. We don't fight for conquest or dominance. We fight to protect others. When people know you're genuinely trying to help them, they'll move mountains to help you succeed." By the end of the exercise, the attacking force had been completely neutralized despite their overwhelming advantages. The human team had suffered only 2 simulated casualties while eliminating or capturing the entire enemy force. Impressive, Zethkar admitted, but surely this was an idealized scenario. Real combat can't be so one-sided. Rodriguez checked his chronometer. Dr. Chen is expecting you in conference room 7 in 10 minutes. She's got some historical data you might find interesting. Commander Chen was waiting with Dr. Vesera and a holographic display showing dozens of historical battle records. Dr. Zethkar, you've been asking about the effectiveness of human military tactics. I thought you might want to review some actual combat data. The first record showed a battle on Kepler Station during the Pirate Wars. 37 human Marines had defended the station against over 400 pirates, achieving complete victory with only 6 casualties on their side. The second showed the defense of Epsilon Colony, where 200 human soldiers had held off an invasion fleet of 15,000 hostile aliens for 6 months until reinforcements arrived. Battle after battle, the pattern was consistent. Humans routinely achieved victory against overwhelming odds while suffering minimal casualties and protecting civilian populations. How is this possible? Zethkar asked, his voice barely a whisper. Multiple factors, Dr. Vesera replied. She had been studying human psychology alongside her linguistic research. Superior training, advanced technology, and exceptional tactical flexibility. But, the most important factor is something called force multiplication through moral authority. I don't understand that term. Commander Chen activated another display. When humans fight, we're not just using our own capabilities. We're using the capabilities of everyone who supports us. Civilians provide intelligence, logistics support, and additional manpower. Allied species contribute resources and expertise. Even neutral parties often find ways to help us indirectly. Why would they do that? Because we've proven that human victory means their safety. When humans win, slavery decreases, piracy diminishes, and trade becomes more secure. Supporting us serves their own interests. Zethkar studied the data more carefully. The pattern was undeniable, but it raised disturbing questions. If humans are this effective, why haven't you conquered the galaxy? The question seemed to surprise both humans in the room. Commander Chen and Dr. Vesera exchanged glances before Chen responded. Why would we want to? Conquest is expensive, complicated, and ultimately self-defeating. We'd rather trade with free species than govern enslaved ones. But, you could do it. The military capability exists. Yes, Chen admitted. We could probably conquer most known space if we really tried. But, what would be the point? We already have everything we need through peaceful trade and cooperation. This was the most frightening thing Zethkar had learned yet. Humans possessed the capability for galactic conquest but chose not to use it. That level of restraint from such a powerful species was unprecedented in galactic history. His contemplation was interrupted by urgent alarms. Not the yellow alerts they had experienced before, but red emergency signals that sent every human on the station into immediate action. What's happening? Zethkar asked as personnel ran past them toward emergency stations. Commander Chen was reading reports on her personal communicator, and her expression grew increasingly grim. Something bad. Dr. Zethkar, you wanted to understand human combat methods. You're about to see our absolute worst-case scenario protocols. In the command center, Admiral Torres appeared on the main screen looking haggard and exhausted. Commander Chen, we have a crisis situation developing in the Vega system. An unknown alien species has attacked 3 colonies simultaneously. Initial reports suggest they're not interested in conquest or resources. What are they after? Chen asked. They appear to be exterminating everything. Complete genocide of all life on every planet they encounter. We've lost contact with over 2 million civilians. The command center fell silent except for the hum of electronics and the quiet breathing of shocked personnel. Zethkar felt his secondary heart stop entirely. Species identification? Chen asked quietly. Unknown. No previous contact. They're using technology we don't recognize and tactical methods that don't match any known military doctrine. Fleet intelligence estimates their force at over 10,000 ships. Earth Defense Force response? Admiral Torres's expression hardened. Full mobilization authorized. Every available ship, every trained soldier, every weapon system we have. This is exactly the scenario our worst-case protocols were designed for. Commander Chen nodded. Harmony Station ready for deployment. What are our orders? Civilian evacuation first, military engagement second. Save as many lives as possible while gathering intelligence on the enemy. And, Commander. Yes, Admiral? The Council has authorized unrestricted warfare protocols. The silence that followed was the most terrifying thing Zethkar had ever experienced. He didn't understand what unrestricted warfare protocols meant, but the reaction from every human in the room suggested it was something awful. Are you certain, Admiral? Chen asked. Full authorization? Confirmed. Whatever these things are, they're not interested in negotiation, surrender, or coexistence. They want to kill everything that moves. The Council unanimously agreed that preserving galactic civilization takes priority over limiting human military capabilities. After the Admiral signed off, Commander Chen turned to address the assembled personnel. You all heard the briefing. This is not a police action or a rescue mission. This is a war for the survival of galactic civilization. She paused to make eye contact with soldiers throughout the room. Full protocol authorization means no restrictions on weapons usage, no limitations on tactical methods, and no requirements to offer quarter to enemies who show no mercy themselves. Zethkar still didn't understand, but the faces around him showed a mixture of determination and regret that frightened him more than anything he had seen. Dr. Zethkar, Chen said, turning to him. This is no longer a research assignment. If you want to return to Council space, we can arrange transport immediately. Will you be deploying with the fleet? Yes. Harmony Station will serve as a mobile command base and evacuation center. Against every survival instinct his species had evolved, Zethkar made a decision that would change his understanding of the universe forever. I want to stay and observe. This won't be like the slaver incident, Chen warned. This will be humans fighting for the survival of everything we consider worth protecting. That's exactly why I need to see it. The preparation that followed was unlike anything Zethkar had witnessed. The station's hidden capabilities were fully revealed as it transformed from a research facility into a mobile fortress. Weapon systems he couldn't have imagined emerged from concealed compartments. Armor plating deployed over critical systems. Additional ships docked to form a small fleet. More disturbing was the change in the personnel. The friendly, thoughtful humans he had been studying became something else entirely. They moved with deadly purpose, spoke in efficient tactical terminology, and prepared equipment that seemed designed for wholesale destruction rather than precision operations. Dr. Zethkar called Lieutenant Commander Kim, whom he had observed during the slaver rescue. Commander Chen wants you in the briefing room. The briefing room was filled with military personnel he had never seen before. Specialists, commanders, and analysts who had apparently been on the station all along but hidden from his research. As the meeting began, Zethkar realized he had been studying only the surface level of human military organization. Intelligence report, announced Colonel Hayes. Enemy force confirmed at 12,436 ships. They've destroyed all life on 7 planets and are moving toward more populated systems. Tactical analysis, asked Commander Chen. Their strategy is simple but effective. Overwhelming force applied without restraint. They don't attempt to capture resources or territory, just eliminate everything living and move to the next target. Weaknesses? Unknown. They don't communicate, negotiate, or show any recognizable behavioral patterns. Standard psychological warfare tactics won't be effective. Chen studied the tactical displays showing the enemy fleet's movements. Recommendations? Full deployment of special operations assets. Maximum force concentration at choke point systems. And, sir. The colonel hesitated. What is it? Intelligence suggests this may be an extermination fleet from outside known space. If we can't stop them here, they'll continue until all galactic civilization is destroyed. The weight of that statement settled over the room like a physical presence. Zethkar suddenly understood why the humans had seemed so grim when unrestricted protocols were authorized. Time to deployment? Chen asked. 6 hours to reach the combat zone. Briefing dismissed. Prepare for departure. As the personnel filed out, Chen approached Zethkar. Doctor, are you certain you want to observe this operation? What you're going to see will be very different from our previous encounters. Different how? Chen's expression was troubled. You've seen us fight to protect others while minimizing casualties and avoiding unnecessary destruction. You're about to see what happens when humans fight for survival with no restrictions on our methods. Will it be that different? Dr. Zethkar, we've been showing you our police force. You're about to meet our military. As Harmony Station prepared for departure, Zethkar finally understood why his assignment had been so difficult to complete. He hadn't been studying human combat methods at all. He had been observing their peacekeeping activities. Now he was going to learn the difference. The journey to the combat zone took 12 hours as additional ships joined their fleet along the way. By the time they reached the battlefield, Harmony Station was part of a massive armada that stretched across light years of space. Through the observation deck windows, Zethkar could see the enemy fleet in the distance. Dark, angular ships that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved in perfect formation, showing no apparent concern for the approaching human forces. All ships, this is Admiral Torres, came the announcement over the fleet communications. We are now entering unrestricted combat zones. Rules of engagement are simple, stop them or die trying. Good luck to you all. As the human fleet moved into attack formation, Zethkar realized he was about to witness something that would fundamentally change his understanding of what humans were truly capable of when they stopped holding back. The first moment of actual combat shattered every assumption Zethkar had formed about human military limitations. When Admiral Torres gave the order to engage, the human fleet didn't advance in the cautious, measured way he had observed in previous encounters. Instead, they attacked with a ferocity that seemed to violate the laws of physics. Human ships moved faster than their specifications should have allowed, fired weapons that generated more energy than their reactors could possibly produce, and coordinated their actions with a precision that suggested telepathic communication. How are they doing that? Zethkar asked Commander Chen as they watched the battle unfold from Harmony Station's command center. Emergency overrides, she replied grimly. We're burning through safety margins we've spent decades establishing. Ships will need complete rebuilds after this engagement, assuming they survive. On the tactical displays, the dark enemy vessels responded to the human attack with their own devastating firepower. Energy beams that could slice through planetary crusts struck human ships, which should have been destroyed instantly. Instead, they absorbed impossible amounts of damage and continued fighting. Their hulls are disintegrating, Zethkar observed with horror. Why haven't those ships been destroyed? Because the crews haven't finished their missions yet, Chen answered. See that destroyer losing atmospheric containment? They're still providing fire support for the evacuation ships. The crew will keep fighting until they physically can't anymore. What followed was the most brutal space battle in recorded galactic history. The alien extermination fleet fought with mechanical precision, showing no concern for their own losses as long as they could destroy human ships. But the humans fought with something the aliens couldn't understand or counter: absolute determination backed by moral certainty. Human crews piloted burning, atmosphere-bleeding ships into ramming attacks against enemy vessels 10 times their size. Weapons officers continued firing even as their positions were torn apart by enemy counterattacks. Engineering teams performed impossible repairs while their ships disintegrated around them. Dr. Zethkar called Lieutenant Commander Kim from her position at the tactical station. We're receiving evacuation ships from the outer colonies. Harmony Station is being designated as a refugee processing center. Processing center? The colonies that haven't been destroyed yet are evacuating their populations. We'll need to organize temporary housing, medical care, and transport to safer systems. For the next 8 hours, Zethkar watched humans simultaneously fight the most vicious battle in galactic history while conducting the largest humanitarian operation ever attempted. Evacuation ships arrived constantly, carrying millions of refugees from dozens of different species. The same soldiers he had seen training for combat were now organizing refugee camps, distributing food supplies, and providing medical care for traumatized civilians. They moved seamlessly between roles, fighting for their lives one moment and comforting terrified children the next. How many refugees have we processed? Commander Chen asked during a brief lull in the battle. Approaching 4 million, reported the logistics officer. We've established temporary settlements on 6 different ships and 3 asteroid facilities. Medical status? Overwhelmed but managing. The Zeloni medical team has been particularly helpful with trauma counseling. Zethkar noticed that Chen didn't ask about human casualties. Throughout the crisis, she had focused entirely on saving others while her own people died in the fighting. Commander, he said quietly, how many human ships have been lost? Chen checked her personal display. 47 destroyed, over 100 damaged beyond immediate repair. approximately 8,000 casualties. 8,000 deaths. For any other species, losses on that scale would have been catastrophic. But the humans continued fighting as if they had suffered no casualties at all. "Why aren't you retreating?" Sethkar asked. "You've saved millions of civilians. You could withdraw to defend core systems." Chen looked at him with surprise. "Because we haven't won yet. Those things are still out there, still killing innocent people. Retreat means abandoning everyone we can't reach." "But the cost." "Dr. Sethkar, let me explain something about human military philosophy. We don't calculate acceptable losses. We calculate necessary actions. If stopping these aliens requires every human ship and every human life, that's what we'll pay." The second phase of the battle began when human reinforcements arrived from Earth. But these weren't the ships Sethkar had seen in previous encounters. These were vessels from the deep reserves, machines of war that had been built during humanity's darkest conflicts and maintained in secret ever since. "My God," whispered the tactical officer as the new ships entered scanner range. "They actually deployed the Titan-class dreadnoughts." Sethkar had never heard of Titan-class ships, but their appearance on the battle displays was unmistakable. Each vessel was the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons that could destroy planets and protected by shields that seemed to bend space around them. "I thought those were theoretical designs," Dr. Vesera said, joining them at the observation deck. "They were supposed to be," Chen replied. "Humans built them during the hegemony wars, then classified them so deeply that most of our own military didn't know they existed." 6 of the massive ships moved into formation and began systematically dismantling the alien fleet. Their weapons didn't just destroy enemy vessels, they seemed to unmake them at the molecular level. Entire sections of the alien formation simply ceased to exist. But the aliens adapted quickly. Their remaining ships concentrated fire on the dreadnoughts, and even those massive vessels began taking damage under the sustained assault. "Titan 7 is reporting critical systems failure," announced the communications officer. "They're requesting permission to implement final protocol." Chen's face went pale. "Permission denied. Continue standard engagement. Admiral Torres is overriding. Final protocol authorized for all Titan-class vessels." "What's final protocol?" Sethkar asked, though he was afraid of the answer. "Something we hoped we'd never have to use," Chen replied. On the tactical display, Titan 7 began accelerating directly toward the densest concentration of alien ships. Its weapons went silent, and all power appeared to be routing to its engines and structural integrity systems. "They're going to ram them," Sethkar realized with horror. "Not ram. Detonate." Each Titan-class ship has a zero-point energy core that can be deliberately destabilized. The explosion will destroy everything within a light-minute radius. The implications hit him like a physical blow. They're committing suicide. They're eliminating the threat. The crew knows that their sacrifice will save millions of lives. Titan 7 reached the alien formation and detonated. The explosion was visible across the entire battlefield, a brief star that eliminated over 300 enemy ships and their support vessels. In the aftermath, a significant portion of the alien fleet simply no longer existed. One by one, the remaining Titan-class vessels followed the same protocol. Each detonation eliminated hundreds of alien ships while costing the lives of thousands of human crew members. "How can they do this?" Sethkar asked, his voice breaking with emotion. "How can they sacrifice themselves so willingly?" "Because they know why they're fighting," Chen answered. "Every person on those ships volunteered for this mission knowing the likely outcome. They're buying time for the evacuation operations to continue and ensuring the aliens can't pursue refugees to safer systems." The battle's final phase began when the last alien ships attempted to withdraw. They had eliminated 6 human dreadnoughts but lost over 90% of their fleet in the process. Withdrawal was the logical tactical choice. The humans didn't let them leave. "All ships, pursuit course," Admiral Torres ordered. "No alien vessel leaves the system operational." What followed was a running battle across 3 star systems as human forces hunted down the remaining alien ships with relentless efficiency. They showed no mercy, offered no quarter, and accepted no surrender attempts from an enemy that had demonstrated no interest in anything except extermination. When the last alien vessel was destroyed, the human fleet had ceased to exist as an organized fighting force. Of the 800 ships that had entered the battle, fewer than 200 remained operational. Casualties approached 30,000 dead and twice that number wounded. But they had won. The extermination fleet was destroyed, the refugee evacuation was complete, and galactic civilization survived. Dr. Zethkar, Commander Chen said as rescue operations began, "You wanted to study human combat methods. What's your assessment?" Zethkar looked around the devastated command center. Exhausted humans continued working to coordinate refugee care and fleet recovery despite having fought for over 20 hours without rest. They had sacrificed everything to protect others, and their first concern was still the welfare of the people they had saved. "I've been asking the wrong question," he said finally. "What do you mean? I came here to understand how humans fight." "But that's not the important question. The important question is why you fight." Chen nodded slowly. "And what's your answer?" "Humans don't fight to conquer or destroy. You fight to protect. Everything you do, every tactic you use, every weapon you build, it's all designed to preserve life and defend those who cannot defend themselves." "That's correct. But you seem troubled by that conclusion." Zethkar chose his words carefully. "I'm troubled because I realize what it means for the rest of the galaxy. Humans are not just the most effective military force in known space. You're the only military force that can be trusted with the power you possess." He gestured toward the tactical displays showing the rescue operations. "Any other species with your capabilities would use them for conquest. But humans use them for protection. You could rule the galaxy, but instead you defend it." Chen was quiet for a long moment. "Dr. Zethkar, what will you tell the council?" "The truth. That human military power exists not to threaten galactic peace, but to preserve it. That your capabilities are terrifying, but your intentions are the only thing standing between civilization and chaos. And if some species decide humans are too dangerous to be allowed such power?" Zethkar had considered that possibility during the long battle. Some species would indeed be frightened by what he had witnessed. But he had also seen the alternative. "Then they would be fools," he said firmly. "The galaxy needs humans exactly as you are. We need your willingness to fight when fighting is necessary, and we need your restraint to ensure fighting only happens when it truly is necessary." Over the following days, as the fleet recovered and refugees were transported to safety, Zethkar completed his report to the council. It was not the document he had expected to write when he began his assignment. Instead of recommending restrictions on human military development, he recommended the opposite. The council should support human military expansion, provide them with additional resources, and ensure they had the capabilities necessary to respond to future threats. Because after witnessing what humans could accomplish when they chose to fight without limitations, Zethkar understood a fundamental truth about galactic security: the universe was full of things that wanted to destroy peaceful civilizations. Species like his own could survive and thrive only as long as someone else was willing to stand guard against those threats. Humans had appointed themselves to that role not out of ambition or aggression, but out of moral necessity. They fought so others wouldn't have to. They sacrificed so others could live in peace. They accepted the burden of violence so the rest of the galaxy could maintain its innocence. That was why humans were the most dangerous military force in known space. But it was also why they were the only species that could be trusted with such power. The galaxy needed its guardians. And, despite the terrible cost they paid for their vigilance, humans seemed willing to continue serving in that capacity. For the first time since beginning his assignment, Dr. Zethkar felt grateful for that willingness. And terrified of what might happen if humanity ever decided the burden was too heavy to bear alone.